Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us today. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has over 20 years experience in the financial world. If you have questions about, I wonder if I can retire. I think I've got enough. I think we're going to be okay if we retire. Those are questions you really need answers to before you actually make that decision. Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment are here to help you do so. 800-700-1980. No cost whatsoever to chat with the team. They don't know if they can help you. And you're not really sure you want their help until you actually find out where you are. So it's just a great opportunity, I think, to get some clarity into your retirement picture, just having a 15-minute phone call with the team. Then you go, you know what? We're in pretty good shape. We need to have a plan. Then you come in and sit down with the team. It's really pretty simple, but it's really about you. Rick and the team are about you. How can they help you? 800-700-1980. You can always go to the website to learn more, safeguardinvestment.com, safeguardinvestment.com. Today, we are going to react to the presidential election. Rick, Donald Trump is only now the second president ever in history to be a non-consecutive presidential time in office. 2016, obviously, 2024. Grover Cleveland did it back in 1884 and 1892, so non-consecutive terms. They had two terms, but they weren't back-to-back. So Trump wins, and I think most are surprised at the ease with which he won. I think I was expecting it to be maybe a Thursday, Friday weekend type decision. Instead, it was early Wednesday morning, East Coast, maybe 2:30 in the morning. It was called. Trump wins. Were you surprised?
Yeah, I think I had the same surprise that you had. I thought it was going to be much closer. And so, he won very decisively. And the big thing about it is I'm glad at least there was no issues with what we went through last time.
It wasn't real close, so we didn't have to go. There was some stuffed ballots and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was kind of almost better that it went this way.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that California is a blue state. Kamala Harris won California before they even opened the voting box, and so there was no decision there. Most states, probably 43 of the 50 states, you didn't have to hold the election. You knew who was going to win that state when it came to Democrat versus Republican. It came down to the seven, always those 7 states that are like, ooh, these are the key states. These determine the election. Yeah, but at the end of the day, really, Rick, you think about it, one of the things that we care about, I think, is when you're in your position helping people come up with that retirement plan, that big picture blueprint, income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning, Social Security, Medicare decisions. At the end of the day, Washington and Wall Street have a play in that. You have to factor in their decisions. But at the end of the day, when you sit down with somebody, it's really about them and what they want out of their retirement. How much income do you need? Are you going to travel? You're not going to travel. You need a new car. What are you going to do? That's really what it's about. It's not about which party's in power, but that is something you do have to take under advisement because it might tweak the directions your investments go or something like that, right?
Well, sure. We want to be cognizant, of course, of what's going on, and the market, will react to, who wins, who's in office, and everything, that the market does is, a lot of it is based on, speculation. So if they feel, hey, one administration's getting into office and, they're going to be reducing taxes and maybe, deregulating things and make it a smoother environment for businesses or, different things. And of course, the market will react to that as opposed to maybe something else that they're expecting. But at the end of the day, regardless who's in office and regardless of, who's in control of Congress or Senate, we've been through many administrations and all kinds of different scenarios over the years that, we have to, design our retirement plans. We have to design our income planning, our tax planning, our Social Security plan, all that based upon a scenario that regardless who's in office, regardless of the outcome, we need a plan that is going to work under any environment, under any condition. And I think the challenge that a lot of people run into is they think that, based upon how the elections are going, they think that, I got to completely revamp the plan. Really, we may need to make some fine-tunements, some adjustments here and there, but we don't have to reinvent the whole wheel. And because we've been in this industry for such a long time, and we've seen different administrations, we've seen different economies, we've seen, you name it. I mean, terrorist attacks and whatever else it is, we have a strategy, we have a plan that has worked consistently over the decades for our clients, regardless of what the environment is. And that's what it's truly about.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, whether your candidate won or your candidate lost, at the end of the day, most of us still have to get up and go to work the next day. I'm still planning on playing golf, right? I mean, whoever wins, I don't care. At the end of the day, though, there are things that affect us. And Trump wins, the markets were outstanding right out of the gate. And so there maybe are different sectors that maybe you should be investing in. So Rick and the team are really here to help you figure out where you are. You're in the right place with investments, the right amount of risk, not enough risk, that kind of stuff. But one of the biggest parts of this is taxes. That's one of the things Trump put into play in 2017, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. If you have questions about maybe your portfolio, hey, Trump's in, so are there ways I can take advantage of that? 800-700-1980. Rick and the team certainly here to help you. 800-700-1980. But the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and we talked about that forever on this show, because it expires at the end of 2025. Trump had said if he wins, he will extend that. Well, we know it's not up to him. I mean, he can certainly say he wants to extend it, but it comes down to Congress approving that extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So we got a couple sound bites here from Becky Swansburg, and she is a former White House staffer with George W. Bush administration. So Capitol Hill staffer and all of that. Her and her dad, Marty Ruby, he is an actuary, but they're big into taxes when it comes to retirement. They wrote a book together, the No Compromise Retirement Plan. Here's what Becky Swansburg had to say about Trump and the tax cuts.
Big question mark is, will we get to keep these lower tax bracket rates? But I will remind listeners, it's just still a temporary fix. If Trump is able to get through an extension or another package of tax cuts, for an amount of time, we'll have lower tax bracket rates. But as we are heading into this rising tax environment in our country, based on our national debt and our spending trends, it is going to be very challenging to keep rates low for long.
So at the end of the day, as Congress makes this decision, Trump has said he wants to extend it, but that's a big deal for your clients, especially those that maybe are in a position to move some money into the Roth world. While the taxes are lower, you'd rather do it then, I suppose. How do you look at that? Because not everybody should move money into the Roth world, but some it makes great sense for.
Right. So what we do is it kind of goes back to my point where we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So at this stage of the game, we know we got to play the cards that we're dealt. So if we know, hey, listen, after doing an analysis for a client and it makes sense for them to do Roth conversions, obviously now is a good time while taxes are lower. And then, let's just say for some reason taxes go up. Well, does it mean that Roth conversions are totally off the table? Maybe it means that we still do Roth conversions, but maybe we do smaller amounts. So it's a scenario where we don't necessarily, shut everything down and completely wreck the whole plan. What we do is we say, okay, what are the cards that are dealt to us, and how do we leverage this in our favor? And some of the things that they're talking about is maybe even getting rid of taxes on Social Security altogether. If they get that through, great, wonderful. If they don't, and let's say for some reason they increase the taxes on Social Security, we're like, okay, well now what can we do? What can we maneuver in other areas to offset? So really, it's a scenario where we're not throwing the baby away with the bathwater, so to speak. Looking at the total package, and regardless of what tax rates are now, especially if we have time on our side, because the earlier people start to do their retirement planning, if I have 10 to 15 years to get money over to a Roth, no matter what the tax bracket is, I can do it. I have more time on my side to do it in a much more strategic way to mitigate the taxes. Now, we may not be able to completely eliminate it, but we can at least create a strategy that regardless of what the tax brackets are, we can do those conversions at wholesale rates rather than retail rates. And that's the bigger picture. We got to look at the big picture down the road and where's it going to take us.
Yeah. We have to take into account what Washington and Wall Street are doing, and then how does it factor into your everyday lives? And that's what Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisor Group can do for you. Again, it's 800-700-1980. Let me give you another Becky Swansburg take on this Trump tax cuts.
Whether or not those Trump tax cuts get extended, we are facing a limited amount of time with these lower tax bracket rates. Right now, for a middle-income American saver, tax bracket rates are about 30% lower than they were just in the early 2000s before the law was passed. So we really need to expect tax rates to go up, and we'll see if maybe we have a few more years to get some of these conversions through.
30% lower taxes than we had in the early 2000s. I was surprised at that. I never felt like I was that much of a break in taxes. But maybe it's just because you think back to the early 2000s, it was dot-com bubble bursting, 9/11. Were you surprised at that stat she threw out that our taxes are 30% less than what they were in the early 2000s?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't feel much of a difference. I mean,
That's
maybe a
what I'm
little bit here and
saying,
there,
yeah.
but I sure didn't feel much of a difference. So, yeah, I was kind of surprised at the stat. It's probably accurate. I guess it just depends on, again, based on income brackets and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, we have to look at scenarios, and everybody's situation is different. And now we may have to, if rates go up, now those people that haven't been looking at their overall planning, maybe they need to sit down with an advisor that could look at their situation. And not only, we were talking Roth conversions, but there's other ways in which people can save on taxes. Understanding, hey, most people when they have their investments, they don't even understand what the cost basis is on their investments. And when they call up their broker, and let's say, they want to take a cruise or they need money out of those investments, and they call up the broker, say, hey, listen, I need 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, whatever the amount is. The broker says, okay, great. I'm going to, sell some shares, or I'll sell this mutual fund or whatever. And they send it to them. How many people ask, hey, listen, what's the cost basis that you're using on that particular portfolio? Is there tax cost harvesting strategies that you're using on my portfolio so that when I'm withdrawing money out of those investments, are you doing it in the most efficient way possible? Because if let's just say, for example, they're not using tax cost harvesting strategies, or maybe they're just using some random default method on how they're pulling the money out of those investments, they may be selling positions to send you money, and the positions that they're selling may be coming out short-term gains versus long-term gains. And now you're paying 20 to 30% higher in taxes because they just sold the wrong positions that they held under a year versus over a year. Or maybe they can have one that's currently down 5%, the other one's up 5%. Maybe they can sell one share versus another share to offset the taxes that way. So, not to overcomplicate it right now, but there are ways that we can strategize the investments that when a person does need money or they need access to their accounts, there's ways to do it where it's very tax efficient. And if you're not using those strategies, or real quick, if you're listening to the show and you're like, hey, I don't even know what you mean by cost basis, or nobody's even mentioned to me that there should be a specific cost-based method set on my accounts, then I think you should get that reviewed, because then you might be missing, there might be some inefficiencies that are going on in your portfolio and you don't even realize it. So very important that we look at those things.
And Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group can do just that for you, and there's no cost. 800-700-1980. 800-700-1980. There's no obligation. There's no pressure. There's no judgment. Rick's trying to look, how can he help you moving forward, not going, oh, I can't believe you got rid of that Blockbuster stuff. That's fantastic. Well, it's not. But, I mean, that's the deal. There's no judgment. 800-700-1980. Rick back with more of the Big Picture Retirement Show right after this.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. Safeguardinvestment.com to learn more. Safeguardinvestment.com. Find out more about Rick and Reed and Eddie and the team. There's some great information on that website as well, safeguardinvestment.com. You can always give them a call if you have questions. Hey, Trump wins. The markets have been going pretty good. Are there areas that I should be tweaking my portfolio to? Maybe, maybe not, right? Everybody's situation is unique. What about the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that might be continuing on a little bit longer than we thought? It's supposed to expire at the end of 2025. Can Trump actually get that through? So a lot of things going on, but you can't just blow up whatever you're doing and overreact to a presidential election or something like that. We deal with Washington Wall Street, but we don't let them guide our lives. That's kind of how I look at it. Rick and the team are here to help you. 800-700-1980. 800-700-1980. I played a couple cuts from Becky Swansburg. She was a White House staffer for George W. Bush, but big in the tax world. Her and her dad, Marty Ruby, have written several books, including the No Compromise Retirement Plan. She's big into taxes, but she said this also. I gave you a couple cuts earlier about her talking about the 17 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Well, it's not going to be here forever. Here's what also she had to say.
If there's one thing I can promise, it is that politics is not going to get cleaner anytime soon. We are not one election away from solving America's problems. And that means the volatility of these elections are going to continue to weigh on the confidence we can have in the success or failure of our retirement approach unless we've done something to specifically address it.
So what she missed was if Rick Rivera had run for president, maybe this one election could have gotten rid of all of America's problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if only I had a couple of $1 billion, right?
Well, they spent $16 billion on this. I think the presidential elections by both parties in the the congressional races, $16 billion. And the crazy part of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, to continue, as Becky had said earlier, that there's only a window. I mean, we're going to have another election in 4 years, so that whole tax thing could change, even if he does get it extended. How will that affect you? But we're $36 trillion in debt as a nation, $36 trillion with a T, and 19%, Rick, of our taxes, 19% of all of the tax money that Americans pay into the government, 19% of our taxes go to interest on our national debt. How crazy is that?
Yeah. And it has to be addressed one way or the other. There's no getting around it. And earlier, we were talking about some people feel that, based on this administration, whether they're investments or whatever, I need to change my investments this way or that way. What we need to do is not start chasing the hottest things. So I guess, for example, let's just say, you say, okay, now Trump won, so maybe I should get out of EVs and, windmills or whatever. Based on whatever you think, one administration is going to favor over the other, or green energy. The scenario here is this. When it comes to your investments, and we're looking at things long term, we're not going to readjust the investments in such a way based on every election, based on every administration.
What, your retirement accounts, your investment accounts for your clients, you don't treat it like a day trader?
But exactly. Because the point here is this. We want to stick to tried and true methods. We want to stick to things that, regardless of any economy, we know is going to be around. Like, obviously, hey, infrastructure. We're always going to need infrastructure. Medical devices or medical. There's a variety of areas that we can go into as to, technology and all these different areas that no matter who's in office, we know, hey, there's certain sectors, certain industries that are not going away and are always going to be there. And now there are speculative moves that people can make, but then I would say, hey, if we're retired, then that would be more of like kind of play money, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to readjust my whole entire retirement plan based on who's in office, and then 4 years later, I'm going to change it again, and then change it again, and change it again. So really, let's stick to the fundamentals that have worked over decades and decades under a variety of administrations, under a variety of different economic environments, whether there was war, famine, inflation, you name it. These are strategies that have been used, and now, again, they may not be sexy. So when you're, investing in Bitcoin and it's up $4,000 one day and down $5,000 the next, yeah, it's not sexy like that. But the other side of the coin is that when we're in retirement planning and we're no longer working and we rely on this money for a paycheck, we want to be able to sleep at night. And that's the huge difference. If you got 30 years, until retirement, and there's a section of your money that you want to play like that, great. But once we're in retirement and you've won the comfortable retirement, that's a great thing. But it's a whole nother thing to make sure that you maintain it and keep that throughout the next 20, 30 years of your retirement. So it's one thing to win it. It's a whole nother thing to make sure that you still have it 20 years or 30 years later.
So really, when you think about it, if you're in your 30s and 40s, you're taking all the risk in the world, right? I mean, if the market drops, that's okay. I got time on my side. I can gain it all back, and I'll be buying it at lesser prices because they drop. So it's no big deal. When you're retired and you're living on that money, now it's a different thing. So at the end of the day, Rick, when you're helping people, they're not going to have 100% of their money at risk. That's probably number one. And they're not going to have 80% or, even 80% of it probably at high risk. But you might have 20% that's super high risk. I mean, we need it down the road. It's just where we are and what our situation is how you help. I mean, you have people that have a lot of money and they need a lot of money. You have people that have a lot of money and they don't need a lot of money. And you have some that don't have a ton of money, but they don't need any. They've won the game already. $250,000 was plenty for them. They had pensions and Social Security. You have people that have $3 million. It's not enough. So it's really not about that. It's about income in our everyday lives. And that's really where you come in, I think, to help guide them at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and the other day I got a call, Mark, from a client, and this is not uncommon for me to get, but I got a call from the client, and he said, "Hey, listen, you know what? With the elections coming up here in the next few days, do you think we should make some adjustments to the portfolio?" And I flat out told him, I said, "In terms of what?" And he says, "Well, I think if this one candidate gets in, this is going to happen. If the other candidate gets in, I think this is going to happen." I go, "Listen, we've already planned for it. You don't need to worry about it. Regardless of what candidate is in there, we already have a game plan for that. We've prepared you for the worst case scenario. If the worst case scenario occurs, we know you're going to be fine. So if the best case scenario occurs, well, I don't need to worry about that. I know you're going to be okay under that situation." So really, we already had the game plan in place that regardless of what happens, you're going to be fine. And that's what your plan should be based upon. So if you just want a second opinion on what you have, whether it's tax-wise, investment-wise, or risk-wise, or whatever, your retirement planning, you're like, "Hey, listen, you know what, Rick? I don't know what I don't know. So I'd like to sit down with you for an hour or 45 minutes, or even do a quick 15-minute phone consultation. I'd be happy to offer that to you. And if you give me 45 minutes of your time, I've been doing this long enough that within 45 minutes, I'll give you 2 ideas that'll enhance whatever it is that you're doing. Just give us a call, toll free, 800-700-1980. Again, our toll free number is 800-700-1980.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC.